Welcome back. Today is June 27th, 2024, and it's an exciting day because the first 2024 U.S. presidential debates are going to be tonight between Biden and Trump. So since this is a channel that looks at debate and applies debate for the sake of clear thinking, I thought I'd give you my best arguments for both the Biden side and the Trump side. Now, what I'm going to do is look at three aspects for each of these two people. First, what is the best argument? Second, what is the best rebuttal? And third, what should they avoid? So Biden's role is tougher than Trump's because defending a record is much harder than poking holes in a record. And this was the case when I did parliamentary debating. The pro or the government side of a resolution was always harder to win than the opposition side, the con. So let's begin with Biden for that reason. So Biden's strongest argument is a steady hand argument. That is to say, he will claim that he has the steady hands on the wheels of the state, that what Trump offered was chaos, which took up a lot of mind share, and what he offers is steadiness and a lack of drama. And to supplement that steady hand, he has the experience of how to create legislation. And he would give as examples the fact that he steered Obamacare through Congress. He was the main person responsible for that, for steering it through Congress at least. He would give his infrastructure bill as an example of that. So that is his best argument. Now, what is his best rebuttal? Well, the rebuttal is to the white elephant in the room, which is questions about his acuity, his mental acuity. So he would probably say, if he wanted to present this rebuttal, that, look, I don't have the spring in my step I used to have. Nobody's going to argue with that. But what I have is the wisdom that only comes through experience. And that wisdom is what's necessary for leadership. And I don't have to be a policy wonk. I don't have to be an expert in anything. I have many people who can remember the names of the heads of state and get into the details. My job is to set a vision for the future, to articulate the agenda that will get us there, the milestones, so to speak, and put together a team and motivate them to seek that vision to achieve those milestones. An example he would give is Reagan. Reagan had a basic philosophy. He put together an agenda and then he put together a team. So that is the best rebuttal, I think, to the contention that he doesn't have intellectual acuity. Now, what is it that he should not talk about? I think he should not talk about this vague theory that somehow Trump is a threat to democracy. It is unclear to me what that threat even means. The U.S. system has checks and balances built into it. So representing the people is Congress, representing the states so that a big state doesn't beat up on a smaller state is the Senate. You have the Supreme Court that makes sure that legislation is consistent with the Constitution, and then you have the executive branch, the presidency, to create a counterbalance to both Congress and the Senate. So if Biden is arguing that there's a threat to democracy, what he's really saying is that one individual can override all these checks and balances. And that is a hard argument to make. It's not very credible. So I wouldn't really talk about that, although that seems to be the main argument that the Democrats are going with. Now let's look at the Trump side. So in my view, the best argument that Trump has is delivery. That is to say, the argument that he's delivered before and he can deliver again. And he can deliver again in three areas: peace, law and order, and real wages. And what he needs to do is say that like a mantra and have the discipline to say that as a mantra. If Biden comes at him with questions about felony counts and problems with the law, he needs to say the American people don't care about that. The American people care about peace, about law and order, and about real wages. So his argument would be, look, there was no war when I was in power. There is war now. And his argument would be it was because he came from a position of strength. He built up the armed forces. He injected some confidence with America first. And that Putin didn't invade Ukraine when he was in office. And Hamas did not launch a major operation against Israel when he was in power. And in fact, he never put any boots on the ground, and in fact took boots off the ground. He in fact created a landmark peace deal, the Abraham Accords. At least that's his argument. Now, the flaw in his argument is, of course, that there is no causation that you can attribute. That is to say, something else could have caused that peace, and something else could have caused Russia to invade and Hamas to invade. But this is not about Nyanyavada, which is the use of debate to find truth. This is about convincing people. So his argument of he's the guy for peace is probably going to be believed by a lot of people if he puts it out. It seems on the surface pretty credible. Then there's the issue of law and order. This is simple. Hey, the border was under control when I was there. Certainly fewer people coming across the border, getting a bunch of people that we don't know, we haven't checked, we don't know who they are. That leads to more crime. And he can give a bunch of examples of illegal aliens that have raped and killed. And then finally, real wages. His point would be, look, I am going to take away taxes on tips, which is one of his assertions. That's going to lead to an injection of more real wages for a large number of service workers, not billionaires, but service workers. He's going to say, I am going to drill baby drill, which means America started being energy independent under his leadership. And that was because he deregulated to allow for shale drilling for shale oil or shale natural gas. So he would say energy is a big component of inflation. Inflation is a problem. By lowering the cost of energy, really lower the cost of inflation. By deregulation and not having an overemphasis on renewable energy, we reduce costs for Americans. So he needs to stick to peace, to law and order, and to real wages. Now, what's his best rebuttal? His best rebuttal is actually taking Biden's notion of chaos and turning it against Biden by saying, absolutely, I created chaos. You create chaos whenever you challenge the system. And that's what I do, he would argue, Trump would argue. I challenge the system. And so this is good chaos. This is good conflict, because when you're taking on special interests and you're taking on this behemoth, which is this these special interests like Congress and like the administrative state, the bureaucracy, it creates a lot of conflict. And an example he would give is, from his point of view, he would say the state is being used by one political party to persecute another political party. And that is a problem. And if I want to stop that problem, I'm going to make some enemies. Now, of course, a rebuttal to his rebuttal would be, yeah, but you plan to use the state against your political enemies, so how are you going to change it? But again, this is a debate to convince people, and a lot of people will get convinced by that. Now, what should he not talk about? What he should not talk about, that's Trump I'm talking about, is his conspiracy theories, like the allegation that there were stolen elections. First of all, I'm not sure it's that convincing. Perhaps there was some fraud in the elections, But it's very hard to prove that that fraud was enough to overturn the results of the previous election. But more importantly, the previous election has nothing to do with now. It has nothing to do with the problems that Americans are facing right now. And for that, I'll offer you Maggie. Maggie is a senior citizen I met, actually right here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And she only has one source of income, which is Social Security. And she currently, because of inflation, because of the increase in the price of food, has to choose between medicine and food. And she's not the only one. I've met other people like that. Perhaps I've talked about it in other videos. But Maggie is worried that she's going to get some kind of medical condition, like a stroke, because she's cutting her blood pressure medicine in half. Now, that is where Americans are. I'm not saying everybody's as badly off as Maggie, but a large percentage of Americans are. And there's a large percentage of Americans who have lost hope and are on fentanyl pills, right? So when Trump talks about stolen elections, when Biden talks about democracy, that's way too abstract for a lot of Americans and a lot of independents who I think will make a difference. And that's the reason you stay away from these very conceptual, unclear, value judgment-laden terms. So that's what I believe the best arguments are for Biden and from Trump. Which do you find more persuasive? Let me know in the comments.